Hey guys, Positive here, and just recently WG put the Skorpion back in the shop after like 9 months of not selling the Skorpion. It's finally here. I'm pretty pumped up that I finally got to pick one up because I don't buy crates. But anyway, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the strengths and weaknesses of the Skorpion and whether or not it's worth it. And also I'm just going to gloat for a quick sec here. I totally called it that it was going to be coming today, so I'm pretty proud of myself for that. And without further ado, let's get started. So let's start by doing a quick rundown of the stats. On the left, I've got the Skorpion G compared against the Jagdpanther 2 and the Charioteer, which I feel like are statistically the closest tanks to the Skorpion. And also the 111 1G FT, the Chinese Tier 8 tank destroyer, because why not? Let's start with the gun. So gun-wise, the Skorpion's got a very nice gun. It's basically the mouse gun, except it's got like 300 more DPM than the mouse. But anyway, 2,850 DPM, that's pretty middle of the pack when it comes to Tier 8 TDs. However, that's a pretty high bar. Like compared to things like IX-3, T-34, those Tier 8 heavies with 400 alpha, it's like 800 more DPM. So even though it's got 460 alpha against those 120mm arm Tier 8 heavies, you will be out reloading them by a fair amount, which is quite handy. Also, like, it's super accurate. The Skorpion G is actually the most accurate Tier 8 TD, other than the AT-15, but that's only because the AT-15 is a tiny gun. But yeah, .18 gun handling, very nice. And then on top of this, like, great dispersion and great aim time, it's just excellent. You will have pretty much no issues when it comes to the accuracy on the Skorpion. I will say though that this 6 degrees of all-around gun depression does feel a little limiting, especially given how tall the tank is. But honestly, 6 degrees, you can make it work. And the nice thing about it is, it's got 6 degrees all over. So unlike say the Charioteer, where like you get noticeably less gun depression over the back, if you're running away from stuff, you still get to access that full 6 degrees of gun depression. When it comes to mobility, it's also quite nice. Like the power to weight, it's not too bad on paper. I know it doesn't look outstanding, but in practice it feels pretty good, especially with that 55 km/h speed limit. Like the Skorpion G really does move like a medium tank, and I don't mean that lightly, because 55 km/h is better than pretty much most Tier 8 mediums actually. And although the power to weight is a little bit weaker, it doesn't really feel that limiting. Traverse speed at 30 degrees. It's obviously lower than medium tanks and lower than the Jagdpanther 2 here in this comparison, but 30 degrees is still very nice, especially when you couple it with that turret. So like tanks like the Charioteer, like this Chinese TD over here, they really just can't keep up. I should note that the camo value on the Skorpion G does kind of suck. You will get spotted fairly often, especially when compared to other Tier 8 TDs. I mean, like, you've even got worse camo than stuff like the M26 Pershing, which has like 23 camo, 17, like 3% extra camo. So that is something you should keep in mind. It's not going to be like some super stealthy ninja Borsig. You do pay for this mobility with that kind of poor camo rating. But if you slap on camo net, like, it'll do the job. If you stay pretty much outside of 250 meters of the enemy, you really won't get spotted with camo net, like level 7 camo skill. Credit coefficient is 170%. That's slightly below average for a Tier 8 premium tanks, but if you're looking to make credits, it's not the worst thing in the world because you never have to fire premium ammunition. Here you get 246 AP pen, so there is that advantage. And armor, there is none. I'm not even going to bring up Armor Inspector. You'll get panned by HE literally everywhere. Yeah, don't count on the armor at all. Everything's going to pen you, you're huge. So I think that about does it for the stats. I'm just going to show a couple mastery games and then give my final opinion. So here we go on our first battle in the Skorpion, at least for this video. This was like my 4th battle overall. But we're playing on Black Goldville, and right away you can see that the Skorpion has very nice mobility. It lurches pretty fast out of the gate. You can see I've got no issues getting where I need to go. And because of this mobility with the turret, you can essentially play the Skorpion like a medium tank with a huge gun.
which is kind of ridiculous. Although, unlike medium tanks, you have no armor at all, and you also have very low hit points. So when playing the Skorpion, you do have to be mindful that you have no hit points. That is the big thing when it comes to this, and because you have no armor, you will lose 1v1s. So try and avoid close combat. And you can think of it kind of like a gorilla, although it's definitely more flexible than a gorilla. But because of this low hit point pool and the fact that everything will pen you with HE, it does mean that mistakes will be punished extremely heavily in this tank. It's quite likely that you could get 2-shotted, usually 3-shotted by things, so you have to hold on to your hit points for dear life. Generally, my experience with playing it has been pretty much feast or famine. Either you just get deleted, or you have amazing games. I think that's really the only way to really sum up how the Skorpion does in battle. So if you're prone to making mistakes, I don't think the Skorpion does great by, because like I said, it is super unforgiving. Like, I'm running the extra hit point equipment, which, considering that the Skorpion right now is being sold with all 9 equipment slots, you should also definitely throw on that extra hit point equipment on your Skorpion. But even though I'm running it, this 1200 hit points does not go a very long way, so you need to pretty much go out of your way to not take hits. It's kind of like the charioteer in that way. So even though the turret does enable you to be fairly aggressive like I'm being here, like, it's like a calculated aggression, and you just really desperately don't want to get hit by anything. Now at this point in the game, my team is 3 to 4. Not the end of the world. We managed to stick a good shot into the Lorraine, but you can see where the alpha damage on this tank really comes in handy, because it means that you pretty much outtrade everything on the battlefield, especially if you play kind of aggressive like I am here. Except, I guess I wasn't playing aggressive enough, because now it's 1 versus 3. And something else I should point out about this tank is, because it gets 460 alpha damage, and it has pretty decent DPM, like 2,850 like I mentioned on Tank Compare earlier, it does rack up damage fairly quickly. So even though it feels like I really haven't been doing much this game, I'm sitting on like 2,000 damage already, which is already a fairly respectable result. And so now we're in a 1 versus 3 against some very big guns. They've got a Skorpion, Borsig, a Smasher. Pretty much any of those tanks will end my career pretty quickly if they manage to find me. And also, I want you guys to take note of this position that I'm playing right here, this bush in the back. It's a great position on Black Goldville if your team loses position of the caves, because as you can see, you've got this bush to work with. There's a little hull down dip behind as I take a blind shot on that Smasher. So it does end up connecting, but like this area right here is a really great spot if the enemy tries to push through the caves, because as you can see in front of it, it's just open ground. The enemy has no cover while you get that bush and that hull down to play with. So since they all passed me, and I think the Smasher might be coming for me if I hit him, I decided to make a move. And I'm really just trying to get the Skorpion out of the game, at least start by removing one of those guns. However, I do spot the Smasher first, which is really lucky for me. And also, even though I just mentioned that the camo is bad in the garage review, right now, since I'm the last one left on my team, I do have that deadly accuracy skill kicking in, so that's why I'm out-spotting people. Although you'll notice that, of course, the second I fire is when I get spotted. So I do get lucky, I set that Borsig on fire, and that drops him down to a 1-shot for my HE shell. And then my teammates are all like cheering me on in the chat. Thanks for being good about it, teammates, instead of being toxic. When it comes to these late game scenarios, it's either the teammates yell at you for being on full HP and doing nothing, but then of course once you deliver the results like right there, then the teammates are like, want a cookie. And we get lucky, the Skorpion shows up, and we shut him down. And pretty much pull a 1 versus 3 in the Skorpion, 4,389 damage at the end. And that's really thanks to like that 460 alpha damage, that turret. I don't really think like it could have been really that easy looking if I were playing something other than the Skorpion, because those tanks, like, we just 2-shot at the Smasher, 2-shot the Borsig, and 1-shot the Skorpion. For something like a medium tank, that would require me to hit like 10, 12 shots in order to pull off. And now for our next game, we're rolling out on Dynasty's Pearl. And admittedly, Dynasty's Pearl is not a great map for the Skorpion because it is that city map. You do have to deal with those close quarters fights and whatnot, and you don't have armor. But I mean, something I really want to make clear is, like, if you watch like a lot of other YouTubers, they'll be like, no armor this, no armor that. And you go on like the Discord, people are like, oh, it's got no armor and I can kill it really easily, so it must not be OP. And I just feel like armor is just way too common of a standard that people judge tanks by. And I really think this is like too big of a misconception to just overlook. The Skorpion doesn't need armor. It doesn't need armor to be good, it doesn't need armor to be OP, because it's got everything else. It's got the mobility, it's got a great gun. Probably one of the best guns at tier 8, if not the best gun, just because it's so accurate. And unlike other guns, you have great alpha damage, like 460. I mean, generally when people talk about great guns, they'll talk about things like the RU-251's gun, which is like super accurate, has good DPM, but think about the RU-251's gun, and now think about it with more DPM and twice the alpha damage and much better penetration. That's the Skorpion's gun. And then, especially when you put that on a turret. So, most TDs at tier 8, they also have great guns. But the Skorpion has that gun on a turret, and the thing goes 55 kilometers an hour. So you can get to where you need to be, you can out-trade people with that 460 alpha, and you've got the DPM to just keep pumping out damage. It's ridiculous. You don't even need armor, especially when you have teammates. So like when that 1390 pokes the corner, he shoots my Carnarvon instead of me. And it's really awesome when they do that because it just means that I can reach out my teammates' hit points, my teammates' armor. And this is pretty much why you don't necessarily need armor for a tank to be good. So even though it's Dynasty's Pearl, which is like the definition of a map where you quote-unquote need armor, you can see I'm having pretty much no issues playing the Skorpion here. And already in like the first 2 minutes of the game, we've racked up pretty respectable, like 2200 damage. And that's because the alpha damage is so great. Like with 2200, to get 2200 damage in say something like a Pershing, that's literally 10 shots. You just have to keep firing and firing in like a medium in order to get that sort of thing. But with the Skorpion, when you've got that 2800 DPM, that 10-second reload on 460 alpha, it's effortless because you don't need to expose nearly as often. You don't need to find targets nearly as often. You just kind of take a shot every now and then, and boom, you've racked up 3,000 damage like we have here. And that's really what I want to highlight about the Skorpion. Is you don't need the armor. You just got this amazing gun. The gun compensates for so many of the tank's faults, and honestly, the only fault of the tank is that it has no armor and low hit points. But if you just take care not to get hit, then you can just out-reload tanks like this IS-5 here. And we're already on 4,200 damage on Dynasty's Pearl. So again, I just want to drive home this point that even though it has no armor, that just makes the tank unforgiving. So if you make a mistake, it won't have the armor to shrug it off, like say like a 252U or something. But when it's played well, and when you can take full advantage of this gun, of this mobility, it just does so much. Like here, this 13-9 is going to try and kill us, but we high roll on him, shut him down. And again, like no other TD can do this, because no other TD has that turret, no other TD has the accuracy to really pull off that sort of thing. And I mean, the Skorpion is just without equal, which is why I've wanted this tank to come to the shop for so long so that I could pick it up. And as we finish the game on 5,000 damage, 6 kills, and really just showcase kind of how awesome the Skorpion is. I know I'm just constantly singing the Skorpion's praises, but that's because the Skorpion is honestly kind of a busted tank. I mean, if you're not really great at fully utilizing the Skorpion's strengths and you're prone to making mistakes, the Skorpion is unforgiving. Like I've said this before and I'll say it again, but really when you make full use of what the Skorpion can do, it's so good. It's honestly pretty much almost on par with the pre-nerf Charioteer, I'd say. It's very similar. And I guess that just leaves the big question. Is it worth it? Right now the Skorpion G is sitting in the shop for 17,500 gold, which is the same amount of gold that comes in that $50 gold bundle, which is admittedly a ton. I mean, I was fortunate enough that I sat on my cheap Christmas box gold for like 8 months, purely because I was waiting for this tank. So it was like 20 bucks for me, but for $50, ooh. I mean, it really depends on how much use you're gonna make out of the tank. If the idea of like just a fast tank with a huge gun sounds great for you, and you're just gonna play the crap out of this thing, then I think it is worth it, because I really do believe that the Skorpion G is honestly one of, if not the best tier 8 tanks in the game, if you can make full use out of it, much more so than any other tier 8. However, I mean, the Skorpion, just the nature of the Skorpion, that feast or famine nature, really does mean that it is kind of skill dependent. I hate to classify people based on skill, but if you're not that good, the Skorpion's probably not going to be worth it for you. But if you really like the pre-nerf charioteer, or if you kind of want a taste of what the pre-nerf charioteer was like, then I think the Skorpion is really your best option. And I know in this video I've only just showed off 2 good games, but for each of those good games, you could very just as easily have a game where you get like 2 shots out and then like somebody 2 shots you. So I really want you guys to keep that in mind, that this tank is extremely unforgiving, much more so than almost any other tank I've ever played. So I guess I'll just leave it on that note. I feel like I've stressed the things I wanted to stress. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful day, and bye.